Hi, folks, and welcome. I'm Dan McDermott. This is Google Plus Week, our unofficial look at the world's coolest social network. This is episode 15 on November 11th, 2011. That's 11, 11, 11, and I don't know what that means, but I know the Wiccans are all in a tizzy. All right, tonight, the biggest news we've had this week are the arrival, finally, of brand pages, or pages about something other than a person. It could be Ford Motor Company was an early brand sort of a test page, but now anybody, it's wide open. Anybody can do a brand page about a local business or a brand itself, but basically it's anything about an organization, and it's exciting. And there have been some positive and some negative reviews. The positive reviews are it's great that they're here, that you can finally have a page about your pizzeria or your car company or anything in between. Some of the negative reviews are mainly that people don't like the way they're set up, or they don't have the features yet. I think one description was woefully inadequate, so we'll talk about all that tonight. So joining me first of all is someone who's very well acquainted with Google+. Joining me from a Hangout is Harold Carey Jr. Harold, welcome. Thank you for being here tonight.
Hi. Yeah, I set up my brand page the very first day. I've been working with the Navajos for 6 years, and I set up a brand page about the Navajo people. And what's interesting about the brands, what I think that I found out is that in the business sense, they have some safety features built into the brands. Is that you can you cannot add people as a brand. In other words, NBC can't add people to the circle unless they follow them. So that's one of the main features. So they can't send you junk mail unless you are following them. They can only add you if you are following them, and that's one of the major features I liked about the brands.
And you did your own brand page, correct?
Yeah, it's called Navajo People.
Okay, and what kind of response have you gotten? Is there any way to promote it?
Yes, well, what you do is every time I go to what's really confusing, it's really hard when I first started up, is because you have to log on as a different person for your brand. So you have to first go onto your brand page, then you have to come back to because you don't want to post personally, you have to post from your brand page or your personal account. So you log onto your brand page and you do a post, and then you go and you promote that post on your personal page. Because I have 3,000 followers on my personal page, I only have 3 followers on my brand page.
Yeah, that's a difference. And that's an issue of promotion, because I know with the personal page you cannot promote it on with AdWords. And I don't know, I haven't tested it yet to see if you can promote, because the only way to promote the show, for example, was to promote my personal page, or the only way to promote on Google+, and they won't let you advertise a Google domain using Google AdWords. So then you'd have to go to another network, but that doesn't make sense, because naturally everybody who uses Google Plus is on Google, so you'd want to advertise on that. And I'm not sure yet if you've figured out that yet. Let me ask Anthony Klauser, what are your thoughts? Have you done a brand page? Are you planning on doing it?
Well, I have nothing myself to personally, promote, so no, I don't think I'll be doing a brand page anytime soon.
Okay.
The brand pages are, I guess the kind of I don't know a nice way to put this, so I'll just put it out there. They're kind of annoying, because if you circle one of these brand pages and they're loud, and I like to have people that I'm, like 90 or 80% of the time I want to see what they're actually saying. And with the brand pages, you kind of get flooded with information, which I guess is the same problem you'd have with, like Facebook with their pages, their company pages. So I had to unfriend a whole bunch of them. But I like the concept.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Let me get Alan. Alan's back. Let me get your take on brand pages.
I think it's a good first effort. If they had done this 4 months ago, I think people would have understood and cut them some slack. But my first reaction when I saw this is it took them 4 months to come out with this. I mean, Brad Harwitz put out a nice post talking about how behind the scenes there's a lot of complexity and things are not always what they seem. But I think for a first effort, this is actually pretty disappointing. It was pretty simple to create a page. I've created 2 of them, but after you do that, you kind of go, okay, so what?
I think the lack of promotion. I would like to be able to promote a page. Like if I create a brand page, if I'm a huge, like if I'm TechCrunch or something, I'm not going to have any problem getting folks to circle. Or ABC News, Ford Motor Company. Those guys have such brand recognition and through their other outlets. But if you're actually trying to build a brand on Google+, it's really not designed for that. For one thing, you can't promote it really. I mean, you can promote it on your existing outlets, but if you're actually trying to build it, if you are an existing brand like NBC or Good Morning America, you can easily attract attention to your page by promoting it through ABC, Good Morning America, etc. And I think they just did that. But if you're trying to build a brand like this program, which basically my entire audience, people who care or participate in Google+, and that's what this particular show is. Now I do other things, the newspapers and stuff, but this particular program I would like to promote, and you can't because they won't let you advertise it on AdWords, which is.
I think what we're going to start seeing, I think we will start seeing that, but I think where they were going with the advertising is with the addition of the pages badges that can appear on your website, with the appearance of Google Direct Connect. I think that as those sorts of things start getting more common and more in use, you're going to see that those will be the center of the promotional and advertising things, not the pages themselves, which is a reversal from what we've seen in Facebook, but I think it's a very good reversal.
So you're overall happy that they have them, but they need some tweaking?
Well, I'm most happy because that means that now that they've got pages rolled out, they can finally get to the important work of introducing pseudonyms. But aside from that, I'm underwhelmed.
Really, that wouldn't suit your. If a brand page had all the same rights to circle as.
It does have the same rights. There are lots of people that are now using brand pages as pseudonym pages.
I don't think. I think you're limited in circling, aren't you?
You're only limited you're limited in circling people who have already circled you, which isn't too much of a limitation, but it does help prevent spamming. It's not a very major limitation for how most people are using their own accounts these days.
Okay. Bruce, what's you set one of these suckers up? What do you think?
Well, yeah, I did. A couple things. The main reason I set one up is it's kind of like the Old West. You want to be a pioneer, at least drive your stake in the ground out there. I think it's going to be interesting in the future to see how Google curates some of this information for, improving your search results. One of the questions I have, I mean, if I was to say, come to my brand page, I'd have to say plus.google.com/u/0/11475203, and on ad infinitum. So there's got to be a better way to direct people to your.
There already are 2 ways to do that. Two new ways that were introduced at the same time pages were, or shortly afterwards, within a couple of days. Mm-hmm. The first is that you could, if you have a website of your own, you can put on that website what they're currently calling a badge.
Right.
And that badge will direct people directly to your page. It will let them add you directly from your page, which is a neat trick. That's been rolled out in developer preview for now, and should be public fairly soon, I imagine, once they iron out some bugs. Mm-hmm. The other is what they are calling Google Plus Direct Connect. And that will be if you add, again, some stuff to your website, and if they have verified you, essentially, then they will set you up in a special way to get to you from Google search results. And I think that's going to be the primary way that they expect people to show up.
Okay. Speaking of the word verification, what's to keep people currently right now to staking out ground using a name of another business or another company?
Nothing.
Nothing. And in fact, we've already seen some fake pages. If you go look at the Bank of America page, for example, it is a nice fake page.
Oleg, what are you thinking? What are your thoughts? Oops,
Well,
man, I totally don't want to.
basically,
Hang on, there's a problem right here. If I want to click on your picture to select you as the person who's on the screen, I can
Yeah.
very easily mute or block you. Because as soon as I put my mouse over your picture, I have to kind of search for a blank spot to click on you. So
Gotcha.
Another issue. But anyway, I apologize. Messed up your
problem.
groove there. What are your thoughts on brand pages so far?
Well, I mean, I agree to some degree with what the other gentlemen have said, but I think from a broader perspective, I think they did an excellent job in terms of, if you look at it from a standpoint that what these things are for, and you put the business aside for a second, you can look at them as something specific to a particular topic. It doesn't have to be business. It could be a particular topic. Case in point, if I want to circle somebody who is, for example, Amiga enthusiast like myself. So I got Amiga, and at the same time is somebody that is interesting. So maybe I have another circle called interesting. Well, I have these two circles, and I cannot segregate the Amiga posts from interesting posts. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But if I do it using the pages, which of course it takes seconds literally to set up, I can actually have a page set up dedicated to my Amiga interests, and that's where all the posts Amiga related will go. And then the same thing can go with the others. So from the standpoint of being able to actually have pages for topics, I think it's a brilliant setup because it's very similar to regular posts, and at the same time it's different because you can do the segregation. Now, if you're looking from a business standpoint and you're looking to see what it does for the business, again, they have a very simple setup. I mean, anybody can set up a business page literally within minutes. I mean, it just doesn't take any time at all, including the pictures for the scrapbook, including the, you can get the badges, everything else. I mean, it's very simple to set up. Everybody sees it, everybody understands it. But if you look at what you can do, you got people that can follow you. Essentially, if you're looking, for example, as comparison to Facebook pages, you have people who can follow you, you have people who can +1 you, you have posts you can put in images, you can put in videos, everything you can possibly want to do in terms of business related activities that you want to share with other people, you can do on your business page. Yet it's as simple as regular posting, almost identical to that. So from that standpoint, I think it's brilliant because you're getting everything you want, and at the same time you have that. The deal with limitations having to do with promotions, I think that part was done. First, I kind of went, oh my God, man, that's totally useless. I mean, that's the whole reason for setting up a business page is to promote stuff. But then I thought about Twitter, and I thought about how much garbage is flowing through Twitter, and how much junk is going through Facebook because everybody posts anything and everything they want, saying that they can help you make money, they can click on this opt-in page, on and on and on and on. There's just tremendous amount of junk. And so from that perspective, it made all of a sudden sense to me that what they're trying to do is prevent from another Twitter, Facebook garbage noise situation being here on Google+. And they're just saying, put in posts that make sense, that are quality, good content for people to read, relevant to your business, but do not just do plain promotions. Or if you want to do promotions, you can always do a link directly to your promotions on your own website. That way, keeping Google+ nice and clean, and at the same time still doing promotion. It's not like they prevent you from promoting. You can promote all day long. You just need to simply link to your blog or to your web page or whatever else you have, and still accomplish the same thing you're trying to accomplish with promotions. It's not like you cannot promote. It's just you have to promote using a link to somewhere else.
Well,
So I think I'm sorry?
Doesn't Facebook have that same policy where Facebook says that you can't run contests on the whatever they call their pages? And
I certainly
companies do it all the time.
Yeah, I did it myself for a couple of companies. Didn't know there was a limitation, and it worked. I mean, nobody ever stopped me.
So I mean, I guess that's my point. Is Google actually going to stop these companies from doing promotions?
I believe they would. I believe they would, because if you remember what happened with the naming and the pseudonyms, where there was a big, little mini war about people wanting to use pseudonyms, they were actually killing the accounts. So, when they said they would do it, they were doing it. So from that standpoint, I think they're going to do it. I don't think they're going to just say it and then let people do it. So, but I think it will keep the whole thing much, much cleaner, and I think it'll keep it much, much more quality content oriented, obviously it's up to you what kind of content you want to share with people. But I think, anyway, so I think that they did a pretty good job for the beginning. One of the things that they wish they would do, and I send them a little feedback thing today to Google, is what would be nice is when I have I don't know, somewhere 900 some people that people have me in their circles. Okay, so I get a lot of posts, and I have over 200 people in my circles. So when I get posts, there's a lot of information that's relevant to one of my businesses, and it would be nice if I could just share that information on my business page, on the Google page. And that's something that I told them it would be nice if they added. So that little pull down that you have next to your name to select which identity you want to post from, if that thing was as part of the share, I think it would make it much, much more useful. But other than that, I don't really have any major complaints right now. I think they did a pretty nice job, in my opinion.
Yeah, it's pretty similar to what the way Facebook does it, where you can post as your page.
Correct.
You can, like the Virginia State Parks have a page, and they can, if it's neat because it's not, it's if someone has a neat post on Facebook about a beautiful set of pictures they put up about a state park they visited, then the administrator of the state park page, who I know, because I'm a big fan of Virginia State Parks, can post as the Virginia State Parks and say, hey, this is a great photo spread. This is wonderful. So glad you enjoyed your trip. So it's really cool. And, of course, you can promote your business. All right, let me we're going to get into an interesting hack thing in just a minute. And we've got the guy who figured it out, probably much to the dismay, in a moment. But first I want to run through Robert Scoble's view on this. We're going to have him on the show at some point. I've talked to him, and he's his schedule's packed, so I'm trying to get him in. But he has some interesting points. First of all, this is like negative or criticisms about its current state, right? Because, of course, Google's still in open beta, and Google has a tendency to run that status out for as long as possible so that they can explain any problems. Oh, we're still in beta. I think Gmail and Docs were in beta for since the late 70s or something. Mm-hmm. But anyway, okay. So let's see here. We got first of all, only one person can own or post to an account. Technically, there's no way for a social media team to split up duties. He says, and if one Gmail account was used to build the public account and it's shared between multiple people, then there's no way to know who is actually posting to that account. Of course, you could put on there, this is Joe or Sam, but that's not as locked down as knowing for sure because it's that person's account that actually posted it. And I think that they said they're going to figure this out, didn't they, Oleg, that they're going to address this issue?
Yes, I think they are, absolutely, because they also enabled this stuff for Google Apps, and for that you have to have it. You absolutely have to have it.
For example, a site, a blog like TechCrunch or something, which has multiple authors with unique personalities and is personality driven, you would definitely want to know, because it waters it down otherwise. Absolutely. And then there's no way for team members to this account without, there's no way to add team members to the account without getting them to follow the account first. There's no way to see who is following such an account if you were the owner. I think it's mainly that issue, and they're going to address it.
Absolutely.
Clearly, because they have to, because it just makes a lot of sense. Okay, I want to hit on an interesting, really interesting topic. Adam is here. Adam, Adam, I'm embarrassed. Help me with the pronunciation of your last name. I don't want to mess it up.
It's Gerbez.
It's Gerbez?
Yes.
It's a lot easier than Oleg's last name, so you get
Absolutely.
kudos, and I really appreciate you having an easier pronounced name. But all right, first of all, can I? Is it okay if I get into who you are real quick, and then your famous story? Okay, you are. I guess I don't know if the numbers is 872, right?
873 million, like the tattoo shows.
Yeah, you are the $873 million man, famous because you were sued by the beloved Mark Zuckerberg and his team, right?
Yes.
And you are in. Are you still in Toronto?
Montreal.
Yeah. Okay. Before you actually did a hack on. This is related because you figured out a problem or an issue or something you didn't like about the brand pages and Hangouts, and then you figured out an end run about it, which is interesting. And it's not malicious at all. I think it's kind of healthy for folks like you who are really talented and creative to figure end runs around it to keep things tight, to keep them on their toes. But tell me the story about how you got that nickname, the multi-million-dollar man, and your run-in with Facebook.
In 2008, I was sued by Facebook in what till this day is the largest lawsuit in the history of North American civil suits against a single person. For I was alleged to have spammed their site with millions of messages to sell products and services to their members, and effectively why it became so infamous was because there was a default judgment against me since I didn't go to California and actually defend this case. I was always based in Montreal, and I did not show up in California in defense of the case, and therefore a default judgment was given against me in the amount of $873 million US, which is the reason why it made such an impact for being the largest lawsuit. In the Guinness Book of World Records 2010, I got a mention in there for that amount for being so absurd. Then in 2010 they came to Canada, and when they came to Canada, they wanted to enforce the judgment in my hometown, and that was a battle that I actually showed up to defend, and I lost. I definitely lost that battle, and the enforcement was bestowed upon me in my hometown to give that amount of $873 million, which at the time would be over $1 billion Canadian, to Facebook, into the pockets of Mark Zuckerberg.
You really should have said the billion. I mean, you should have used Canadian currency, because you could have said you were sued for $1 billion. I mean, that's
it fluctuates so much.
That's so much more impressive than 800. And, you know what I mean? I've lost $1 billion lawsuit.
$1 billion here, $1 million there. You know.
Yeah, I made it. But it's more than you had. I assume it's more than you had in the bank at the time.
Oh yeah, just a little bit over. Yeah.
But I apologize. Go ahead.
Yeah, so that, all that rounded up. Now, in 2010, I declared bankruptcy, personal bankruptcy, which absolved that debt of over $1 billion. And here I am today, talking to you guys.
So were you, I guess I got to ask this, were you innocent? Again, I mean, this is all, I just hadn't come across this story in this detail, and I didn't know you were going to be on. This is awesome. But I mean, were you innocent, or just kind of got out of it by declaring bankruptcy?
Well, I've never admitted public guilt to that particular accusation to this day. I've never discussed, innocence or guilt, and I want to keep it that way. I think it's rather mysterious.
I can't imagine anybody who would have a different policy. But maybe I'm reluctant to give you my email address. No, I'm just kidding. For fear it will be. No, I'm just kidding. No, this is awesome. This is a fascinating story. So you could just it totally abrogated you of any responsibility on that debt. The bankruptcy laws in Canada, because in America, I know they've changed the laws.
In Canada, as the bankruptcy, as it works out here, is, it's not that you don't have to give anything back. It's that they judge by what your assets are at the time. And then they make you pay monthly payments to the bankruptcy trustee for a period of time, based on your current salary, not what you made, but what you're currently making. So since my salary is way above the bracket of the average person, they ended up deducting about 25% of my earnings for a 21-month period to deposit into this bankruptcy agreement. But after the 21 months is up, then it's absolution kicks in.
Now, this was a civil matter, not a criminal matter, right?
No, it's only civil.
So you could admit all day long and it wouldn't matter now, because it's you can't be tried twice. I mean, do they have double jeopardy in Canada?
No, but see, if I was to say something that wasn't true, or say something misleading or whatever, that could perhaps lead into a criminal investigation, that would only hurt me and not help me.
Ah.
So therefore I wouldn't enjoy.
Hypothetically, if someone were to deny something in the past during legal proceedings and then have a different, we're speaking hypothetically, of course.
And also if I was to, this is one thing that you and your listeners will find very interesting and probably comical, is in my conditions that I was given by the Superior Court judge, both in Canada Supreme Court and the California Supreme Court, in those conditions, if I so much as use a Facebook logo on anything that I do, perhaps my vehicle, if I do a radio show like this, or a Facebook page or something, or rather that I would do on my own, and it has their logo, I could be in violation of Supreme Court, and I would be charged criminally and go to prison.
Wow.
For using their logo. Also, I cannot access their website. I'm banned from Facebook for life, which is fine. And among a few other, there's a few interesting conditions in there that are pretty extreme.
You may be the only person banned from Facebook. I haven't.
Banned by a federal court judge, a Supreme Court judge. Yeah, I think I'm the only person in the world.
You go down in style, I gotta give you, props.
Oh yeah, definitely. I gotta keep that style going on.
So you've actually probably, you're milking this pretty good. This is.
I've got. Since this happened, I received millions of dollars in free media coverage. I've been on all the major networks, American networks, from CNN to all the Fox networks. I've done interviews. I've been on, you name it. I've been everywhere. Radio shows. I've been on every single front page of every single newspaper worldwide, from here to Japan. I got news clippings like stacked like that. Just crazy stuff.
Of course, the culmination is your appearance on Google Plus Week. No, I'm just kidding. All right, so that's awesome. That's an interesting story. I find it fascinating. I'm sure there are perhaps a few people who have received some of your correspondence that may not share the joy of talking to you that I do. Allegedly. Keyword. All right, so let's get back to topic. But that's fascinating, and I'm so glad you shared that with us. So you have, with some sort of interest in hacking type things, you've discovered a limitation in brand hangouts and an end run around it. So why don't you tell us about the limitation, tell us about why you were motivated to come up with an end run, and tell us what the end run is.
Sure. In essence, what happened was a few nights ago, I was approached by several people in a hangout that I was in on Google Plus. Several hangouts actually that took place that day. And these people were saying, oh, it's terrible that we can't use our group page our brand page to access a hangout. We want to jump in a hangout as our brand and, discuss things with other people in that hangout. And that was something that was impossible to do. Once you would log in as your brand, you could not join. You could only start a hangout and hope that people would notice you and find you, which was next to impossible. So to get more exposure, people wanted to do this, and it was quite a few people. Like, we're talking about 85% of the people that I was speaking with wanted this feature. So I took it, in my own hands. I said, well, it shouldn't be that complicated to figure a workaround. And essentially, when I say hack, it doesn't mean that I did anything that would be considered, criminal invasion or whatnot against Google servers. All I did was I modified a URL, the actual address. I took two parts of a URL and I glued them together, and then I pressed enter, and voila, I was inside as a group, inside as a brand page. So it took me about 25 seconds to figure out, which surprises me that Google's security team wasn't on top of that. But yeah, so 25 seconds later, I delivered the workaround to everybody publicly, and it was picked up by some of Google's employees that work in Hangouts, and they had shared it with their security advisors and whatnot, and I guess they're currently working on it. But it does work. In fact, you could join any Hangout that's happening, whether it's private or public, as long as you have the URL of that Hangout, you could join as a group, as a brand page.
Okay. And what are your thoughts on this? Let me see. Let me get Oleg. What do you think about this?
I apologize. I had some situation with the kids, so.
Oh, it's okay. Who can I hit? Alan, are you ready? Go ahead, Alan. What do you think? I think this is a good. I think it's a good thing, because this isn't like exposing someone's data or anything. This is kind of keeping the engineers on their toes, coming up with end runs. And like I said earlier, I don't know if you were here or not, but MySpace, there are all sorts of ways you could do different things by studying how the URLs were built.
No, I mean, overall, I don't think this is a big deal. I mean, pages have been able to initiate Hangouts, so having them join somebody else's Hangout is certainly no big deal. we've discussed often in the past that Hangout, there's no such thing as a private Hangout, just a private invitation to a Hangout. So I think it's, what Adam did was incredibly clever. I'm glad he found it. I think it highlights one of the interesting things about Hangouts in general, and that's that the security by it is more by obscurity than anything else. But overall, I think this is a good thing, and I've certainly seen it put to some very creative uses so far.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think it's clearly clever. Anthony, what are your thoughts? Are you gonna make use of this?
Well, I don't have a problem getting into Hangouts, so the ones I want to get into, I'm invited to. It's good when security flaws are found and then they're reported to the company that is there to fix it. Doesn't seem like a huge deal, I guess.
Yeah, I don't think it's a big deal. I think it's clever. It's a neat trick more than anything malicious. And not as impressive as being sued for $1 billion Canadian. You should have 2 tattoos. Adam, I can't believe you chose the American currency and went with 800 and something when you could have. But then I guess you ran out of arm, right?
I didn't have enough space to put that many zeros, so the 873 fit very well.
It works,
There was another hack actually that I did a while back. Maybe you guys didn't notice it, but was when you guys started getting those captchas? Do you remember those? Are they still coming up for people? You get a captcha, a Google captcha.
Say it again. I'm not sure what you're talking about.
Google captcha is like when a bunch of weird-looking codes come up and you have to enter them to continue. It's called a captcha.
Oh, a CAPTCHA. CAPTCHA. Yeah, CAPTCHA.
Yeah,
I hate those.
I'm Canadian. Sorry, my accent there.
It's okay.
So Google started, putting the captchas up really heavy a few weeks ago, and it took me another 25 seconds to bypass that as well.
Where were you seeing those? I haven't seen those on Google, I don't think.
They were coming up when you'd enter posts too fast or you'd be switching pages too quickly. You'd get a captcha, and it would. I guess it was a security measure in case somebody had a robotic, a program that was automating posting.
So you'd kick in a throttle.
Right, exactly. You hit a throttle point. You hit exactly. They throttle you at one point, and
ironic that you would have hit such a allegedly.
Yeah,
I
wasn't even doing anything malicious. I was simply posting on several people's comments, and it came up, and I said, "Oh, that's rather weird." And I just figured out if you just remove the HTTPS security secure URL, you just jump back in, and the captcha's gone, so you don't have to spend time entering it letter by letter. And so
I've seen those a few times while trying to comment on YouTube videos. Is do a few too many comments, I guess, and get it.
Yeah, it's tricky because it's a game. They're trying to legitimately keep out folks who are gaming the system, and sometimes it does keep out some folks who are trying to game the system, and at the same time, it also, if someone's trying to do something normal but maybe something they hadn't anticipated, then it creates a problem. Like any of these engineering battles that they're trying to fix here. Mark, how you doing, buddy?
Good. It's good to be here.
It's good to have
Thanks
you
for
here.
having me.
Yeah. What we had initially talked about brand pages. Have you set one up? Or are you planning on doing that, or what are your thoughts on brand pages?
Yeah, hopefully here. Anything that anything that's new and comes out, I like to give it like a couple weeks to, for them to get the kinks out. And it's a situation just like we're looking at now with, people having problems with them that kind of justifies why I do it. But hopefully here soon, I'd like to, build a page.
Yeah, I got one for Warren County Report, my newspaper, but I kind of went halfway through it, but I got to get the logo and stuff, so I'm working on it. I'll play with it. I'm not sure how relevant it's going to be or useful to me, really. I mean, there are only so many hours in a day. I haven't figured that out yet. Gary Levin, have you?
Hello.
How you doing? Have you thinking about setting up a brand page, or?
I'm thinking about it.
For what? Do you have a business or organization, or what are your thoughts?
Well, I'm going to probably use it for my social media business and my media business. I'm not sure yet what I'm going to use it for.
What's your social media business? Tell me about that.
I work with healthcare hospitals and physicians, educating them, training them, and implementing social media plans in the healthcare space.
Huh, that's neat. And yeah, I think it's going to be it's going to be good, and it's going to get better as they innovate more. David Cheney, you I guess you set one up today, right, for a small business?
Yeah. Company I work for, when I heard about the brand pages on Google, I went ahead and set one up. I was sort of concerned about whether if I didn't set it up, what keeps anybody else from claiming that business. And so I just wanted to see what the process was like. And I was actually surprised that they didn't really do any verification to know that I was really had any authority to set up a brand page for the company that I work for.
That's an interesting comment that you would make about you didn't want someone else to claim the name, because actually that's not an issue now, because you can have multiple, like let's say it was Anthony's Pizza. Well, God knows how many Anthony's Pizzas there are in the United States or in the world, but there can be multiple, like there are multiple Dan McDermotts or multiple David Cheneys probably. There's no specific URL. It's not like Twitter. And I wonder if that was, I'm going to ask Oleg, and if you think this might be a reason that they haven't gone to short URLs or provided any service for that, because they didn't want to have to be the arbiter of who owns a name. Does that make sense? Because that's a problem. Like on Twitter, if you're, like, what if Madonna... well, let me think of someone. Justin Bieber. What if, if a 48-year-old insurance salesman had already registered for Twitter and his name was Justin Bieber and he wanted that name, but then Twitter wanted Justin Bieber on Twitter, so they don't have to deal with that by having these ridiculous, crazy URLs. Are you muted?
I think he's muted.
I think we've muted. I think you're muted, Oleg. I'm not sure how he's muted. Maybe he's logging back in. Alan, do you think I'm making any sense here?
I think you are, but I think this goes back to the issue of how Direct Connect is going to be used and how the Google badges are going to be used, and just in general that Google's strategy towards this is a little different from Facebook's. This is actually a strategy I think is good. It means that you're not going to see a land rush for silly names. You're not going to have the bizarre Facebook or the bizarre Twitter names that we've seen. Instead, you're going to have the multiple brand names or the multiple names that people wish to use for their pages up front and represented. And I think that's going to be a good thing in the long run.
I think the ultimate fail on those names is that guy who had Quickster. And then he could have sold it, man. He should have sold it like in 10 minutes. And I don't know, when Amazon was, when Netflix was going to, I don't know, just one of their 17 different rapid failure moves that they've accomplished. All right, let's, I guess so far we are excited that brand pages are here, and we agree that there are some features that they need to address, but they've come a long way in the meantime. And let me get while we're waiting for Oleg to come back in, let me go back to Adam. And what are your thoughts? I don't know. Do you have what business are you in now? Do you have a brand page that you've set up?
Well, I will be setting up one for a company that I'm consulting with, and it's going to be a spy gadget store selling products that are very much in high demand right now, that are very talked about in the media as well. if you've been looking at your streams lately, you might have seen a lot of talk about stuff like GSM trackers, like this, little things that you put on the bottom of somebody's vehicle, and you could track where they're going, where they've been. Also, bug devices if you want to bug somebody's house or listening to conversations on the phone or whatnot. All those little gadgets, right? So I'm basically going to set up I'm working on it right now, setting up a nice little brand page for that to attract people into getting more curious about these products and services and finding an actual hub where they could, discuss and view how they work. There's going to be product videos. There's going to be, stuff that I'm going to do myself and with others to show the products, demonstrate them. But there's a very high demand for these products right now, these so-called gadgets worldwide. So that is going to be one of the things I'm doing.
I think that's been the subject of a national news story about police using those things, those trackers. They can, I guess they can stick it underneath your vehicle and track you.
Yes.
And there's a privacy or due process argument against them. But there are all sorts of.
It's I think Mashable and TechCrunch were covering it this week. I mean, it's rather impressive. I mean, a device this small and fits in the palm of your hand. And
go ahead and hold that up for a little bit. Yeah.
Sure. Sorry.
Now, how does it work? Is it a magnet?
It's a little device that has a magnetic backing. I'll unlock it for you guys so you can see what it is. And inside the backing, there's 4 magnets that hold it to the bottom of your vehicle, wherever you want to put it magnetically. And then you have inside the device, if you look closely, you'll notice there's a little spot right here that you fit a SIM card. So you could go to any of your local mobile phone stores and purchase a SIM card with a phone line on it, a prepaid phone line, which doesn't require any contracts. And then you insert that SIM card into here, and the phone number that's attached to that SIM card that they give you at the mobile store is the number that you will call from any other phone and send commands to the box, no matter where it is. And then the box will send information back to you onto your phone, so you can track.
What sort of commands would you send? I'm not.
Commands such as location, current location, location for past 4 hours, 1 hour, live location, live tracking, so it'll keep on pinging the device, and it'll get back to you and say, okay, person's at this point, now they're at this point, now they're at this point. And then you open it up on a Google Maps. It uses Google Maps as well, where you could actually do a live trace, a visual trace of where the person is located at that exact moment. It's FBI grade, it's military grade, but the best thing is I'll be having them on my brand pages for about $100.
And what is the life? What's the life of it before the battery dies?
Oh, it could last about 8 days. 8 days without any interaction.
That's a lot longer than my phone.
Yeah.
I have to take a charger to the bathroom. Okay, let's get. I stole that line from the TechCrunch founder, who's always in the news. Okay, let me get Oleg in here real quick. All right, Oleg, I guess your claim to fame on this show was your spirited debate with Chris Pirillo about Apple versus Android.
Right.
Now, you am I allowed to say you were a little under the weather recently, and you had some time when you?
Well, you can see the crutches behind me, so I guess you could say that.
Yeah. So you had some time to read the Steve Jobs book.
Yes, I have.
Now I know you are the world's biggest Apple fanboy, and but I'm just kidding, obviously.
With the exclamation point in the beginning.
He's not exactly an Apple fanboy, but he's going to be very objective. And I'm really curious because we had chatted on Google Plus, and you'd mentioned that you'd had a chance to basically you were bedridden for a period of time with some medical stuff, and so you read this book about your hero. Just kidding. And I'm really curious to get your take on this because we've heard so many reviews and stuff, but you're pretty smart cookie. And then as he's going, anybody else who wants to weigh in, you can agree, disagree, what have you. Just type in the chat room. We'll both see it, and we'll bring you in. But Oleg, tell me, first, I guess just generally what you thought of the book and what your thoughts are.
Basically, it's a kind of ironic, actually, to think about it. Jobs, for all his lifetime achievements, which were fairly substantial, has not been able to convert me to be an Apple fanboy, and yet, after he passed away, then when I'm down and out, instead of reading some book about spies killing terrorists, I'm reading about his lifetime. So it's kind of ironic. But anyway, he was certainly a very fascinating figure. I mean, in the book, it's clearly indicated that he was a very fascinating man. He was not your typical guy in any way, shape, or form. You cannot really compare him to just about anybody. I mean, even though there's some comparisons similar in terms of the way he conducted himself to Bill Gates, they're still quite a bit different. And so, on one hand, he was the man who, the fascinating thing about him is that he was not a guy who actually invented anything. I mean, he meddled around a little bit in the beginning with electronics. He got interested in electronics, but the first success of Apple was Apple I, turning into a much bigger success with Apple II. But it was all Steve Wozniak, because Jobs himself did not invent anything in that computer whatsoever. Now, what Jobs did so well afterwards, though, was he was able to manage a company, which is after many years, though not in the beginning, and he was able to actually get quite a bit out of people almost in extraordinary manner in terms of the result you get from people, where other companies were not able to do the same. And partially it was because of his horrible character and demeanor, the way he treated people. I mean, the guy was just basically a jerk. If you look at, when I saw the movie Pirates of the Silicon Valley, and they show how he comes in, at ungodly hour, walks into Apple, and there's some guy sitting almost snoozing. He's been working for, they had these 90+ hour T-shirts that they, some people wore, indicating they work so many hours a week. And at that point, you can see, looking at this thing, that that the guy, gets into an argument, he yanks the cord, and another guy starts a fight with him, he, throws him into the wall. And I thought, well, it's probably over dramatic, probably nothing like this ever happened, it's just for the movie, for the effect. But in reality, after reading the book, that's exactly the kind of a guy he was. He was absolutely despised by a lot of people because of his really jerk-like treatment of people who tried to do things to the best of their abilities. Sometimes it wasn't good enough for him. In that case, they were shit. Pardon my French. That's the way he called them. You're either basically a brilliant, insanely great guy, or you're shit. I mean, those were the two things for Steve Jobs. And he basically did this with everything, with products, and everything he did was basically very black and white, which I can relate to because I'm that kind of guy. But at the same time, there was never a middle ground for him. And so it's fascinating to read how he came out of the initial Apple experience, being just a young green guy who really kind of got into it almost accidentally. I mean, the whole success and everything else was really not that much of his impact as it was major demand for those kind of products at that time, because there was nobody else at that time doing it. And of course, there were some other people like this Markula guy and some other folks who actually stepped in to do the business end and kind of tried to manage him to some degree, because he was very good looking, he was very flamboyant, he was very well spoken, and he was an intellectual guy. And so being that kind of a person, it was fascinating to listen to him, and he would never take, no for an answer, or basically back off under any circumstances if he thought the circumstances were right. And so when you read about that, you can kind of see how he was, and then of course he became so obnoxious that eventually they dumped him because they thought he was bad for the company. And so that's the part until John Sculley days. And then and of course many people that ran Apple were total bozos, there's no question about it, including Sculley. I mean, from technology standpoint, Jobs was a brilliant guy, being able to see and kind of push things to go into Star Trek experience, go where no man has gone before type deal. But at the same time, even though he used the word insanely great and he kind of pushed to get it done, at the same time, the reason I'm not a fanboy is because if you look at a lot of products that Apple made and you do the specs, just from IT perspective, from computer perspective, specs compared to other things, like if you compare iPhone to Android, or you compare iPad to some other tablets, it's not the superior technology by any stretch or form in many ways. Yeah, it looks good, it may look even much better, but it's not superior technology in terms of specs. I used to be a huge fanboy of Amigas in the old days. Okay, it was an incredible machine. I don't know if any of you guys ever seen what they could do and what they were able to do, but it was just unbelievable platform technology. Back in the days when, we're talking about multimedia, animation, 4,096 simultaneous colors on the screen. Back in the time when IBM showed 24 line by 80 character display in 16 colors, and Macs pretty much were black and white with 9-inch screens that you can use, to hold the door open so the wind gets in. That kind of deal. I mean, it was horribly slow. I mean, there was no comparison between the platforms, in my opinion. But Jobs pushed the point. He thought that this is what he would call an insanely great product. Same thing happened with iPhone. I mean, he says that, and he wanted to make his mission to blow $20-some billion Apple had in the bank just to kill Android, and that shows his kind of character, where the guy is he's not, rational from that perspective. In my point of view, he's not reasonable. He just basically feels that it's his deal. He's got insanely quote great product, and nobody else should be buying anything else. It's just his attitude. The fact that Android in many ways is better than iPhone is irrelevant. He never looked at it this way. The fact that he should have made better products to actually then outdo Google with Android, that never occurred to him. The way he wanted to march is he wanted to do his own thing. He wanted to do exactly what he wanted to do, come hell or high water. And because of this kind of approach, he had situations where he had big successes, and he also had big failures. For example, Next was a very ambitious project. I remember walking into stores, looking at Next, being fascinated by them in many ways, but it was a complete flop. I mean, the thing didn't sell at all. Same thing with Lisa. Same thing with Newton. I wouldn't attribute it to him being a problem, because that was pretty much other people's baby. But there were a number of failures in Apple that he couldn't do. But at the same time, because of his zealousy for doing things a certain way and being totally into beautiful things. I mean, he was definitely, like I said, an intellectual guy. He was also a very visual guy, and he was also into kind of things that look good, look nice. He was, a big fan of what's the guy's name? Paul Rand, which is the guy who designed the IBM logo, the Esquire magazine logo. I mean, he did a bunch of really, really high-end deals. And so he was kind of a fan of his. He was a fan of simplicity. He wanted things to be as simple as possible because he saw beauty in that. He wanted things to look beautiful, color-wise. Big fan of these white, if you remember, iPod came out. It was white with white headphones, things like that. I mean, this was Steve Jobs. He wanted things to be simple. He wanted them to be beautiful, and he wanted them to be exactly how he wanted them to be. If anybody didn't go with the program, they get canned. They're out there. And so he tried, but he was able to build enough of a following with his charisma to actually get some products out, even though he didn't invent MP3 players. He certainly was the guy who created the industry pretty much from those. And then we see where it took off and how it did. Same thing then later with smartphones. Same thing later with iPad, things like that. So he definitely gets big kudos for driving the momentum of certain new technologies that became what they became, but he certainly doesn't get any credit for inventing them per se, like a lot of people give him pass, like he's almost godlike. He wasn't anything like that at all. And the biggest thing is, like I said, dealing with people, even his own family. He didn't acknowledge his daughter, his first daughter, for like 19 years. He was basically saying it wasn't his kid and stuff. And it just shows some of his character where he's on one hand, a very kind of giving guy and pushing things for other people, but at the same time, there's this narcissistic end of it, where the guy says, we're going to control what App Store sells, and you're not going to put your app in App Store unless I say it's okay. So on one hand, there's this insanely great push to get something out for the people. He's not doing it for himself. He's designing it for other people to use. And at the same time, he puts these kind of brakes on it, saying, I don't care what anybody says or what anybody thinks. It's not going to be an open architecture. I'm not going to let anybody sell Macs. I'm not going to let anybody mess around with applications unless they're per my specifications, that kind of stuff. So there's this kind of dual personality thing. And, to me, it was a very fascinating book. And he was a fascinating guy. And even though I was never a fan, and I'm still not a fan, I would say that, I'm sincerely sorry that the guy passed away so early, which also, according to the book, was certainly his own fault. I mean, he could have, if he did what people told him to do and didn't do his Steve Jobs, it's my way or highway, he probably would have been alive right now. So that was, kind of the ultimate deal that he screwed up, and in the book it clearly states that. And you know, certainly my feelings and everything goes to his family and his kids, and you know, there are a lot of things he did right and a lot of things he did good, a lot of things that he did wrong. It's just too bad that he left so early. So that's kind of my take
All right.
on the book.
Let me, anybody who's in the Hangout and wants to weigh in on this, chat now and let me know if you want to agree, disagree, whatever, but weigh in on this. I've got a couple observations about what you've just gone through. One is, you said his products really aren't superior to Android or other offerings, but isn't superiority in the eye of the beholder, and isn't
Absolutely.
superiority about what people adopt? If you take the average non-technical person and you show them an iPhone and you show them an Android. Now, the Android is vastly more configurable and for a technically oriented person, vastly superior. For someone who is not a tech geek, okay, for someone who is you know, I don't know, recently got off AOL dial-up, then it might not, you know, I'm being flippant, but for people who are not technically oriented and don't want to mess around with stuff and don't want to have to configure stuff, they just want it to work and be easy and look pretty and be very functional and have all these cool apps and get their job done. I think in that regard, I think Apple is probably superior to Android.
Well, I mean, it's like you said, it's very subjective. I mean, if you take a person who's never used computers and you throw them on a Mac, because Macs are so easy to use and everything else, my guess is it's going to be a very similar experience to throwing them on any other platform. They're not going to be able to figure out how to use it. It just, you know, it's always you have simplicity versus functionality. It's never, you cannot have features if you're not going to have some level of complexity, and that some level of complexity requires a certain amount of education. It's just there's no way to get around it. So if you're telling me that you can give smartphone like Apple to a person who's never used a phone outside of talking, and they can immediately figure out what to do with apps and this and that, I would say I would respectfully disagree. Okay.
Well, Oleg, let me give you my 2 cents on this.
Sure.
Let me find who's talking here.
I'm sorry, what?
Who's talking here?
Robert Anderson. So I think Apple mastered the art of the user experience. From the unboxing of their products, their packaging is lovely, it's interesting, to the overall user experience. And I think that's what they focused on. I think that's what they've done incredibly well. I would respectfully disagree with your assertion about what you just said. I have a 2.5-year-old son, and he uses an iPhone daily to play his games and do the things, and he flips through and finds them, and he looks at photos. He does all kinds of things on that phone, and no one's had to show him how to do it. Sort of, well, maybe initially, but he's intuitively interactive with this device, and it's very easy for him to use. I mean, I don't give Steve Jobs credit for the invention of many of the things he did. He was like a jazz player. He riffed on other themes. So he found other things that existed, and he improved them, and he improved the user experience. He brought many things together in a way that didn't make him an originator, but certainly made him an innovator or an optimizer of a system. And so for that, I definitely give him credit for that.
I agree. Although I have to tell you that, you know, my kids take my Android phone and they don't have any problems figuring out what to do with it either. So it's not to knock Apple. I'm just saying that, yeah, these kind of phones, I mean, there's a lot of functionality that kids figure out. It's not because of Apple being superior.
I think this entire simplicity argument that people try to bring up when they're trying to say that the iPhone is such a much better device as far as simplicity goes, I think it's I think the full of it when they say it. I mean, if I take an iPhone and then I take an Android phone, I guess if you want to get down to the nitty and gritty, the iPhone is going to be more simple to use. But if you spend another 5 minutes, like literally, like if you spend 30 minutes trying to figure out how to use an iPhone for the very first time, you're going to spend, what, 45 minutes trying to learn how to use the Android phone? And I've tried to do things on the iPhone because I don't use it that I know how to do very quickly on the Android phone, and I, try to fight with the iPhone settings for like 10 minutes because I haven't used it.
When the iPhone came out,
I haven't used it daily. So, if you're an iPhone user, the iPhone's going to be easier for you to use. If you're an Android user, the Android device is going to be easier for you to use. So the device you use is going to be the easier one to use.
But Anthony, when the iPhone came out, it was groundbreaking and a differentiator above all the other handsets that were out there. Most of the handsets had keyboards on them. iPhone changed the direction. Other phones followed. I'm not saying that there aren't products that are better than iPhone. Android's done extraordinary things, but when the iPhone originally came out, there was no Android. Android didn't exist. It followed in the footsteps.
It did. No, I disagree. I disagree.
I disagree. The only thing that the iPhone did was they pushed the touchscreen, and the touchscreen is a fundamentally different way to use a phone. And where 90% of the phones previously were using, keyboards,
correct.
Now 90% of the phones, or at least, well, I would say like 70% of phones and like maybe 80 to 90% of smartphones all use touchscreens now. So I think the touchscreen was the innovative part. I don't think it was necessarily the operating system.
I wouldn't say that the operating system was the innovative part of it. In fact, when you look at the rollout, they said there were 3 things that got integrated into that he was. The day he announced that, he said, we're talking about 3 things today, and it was, we're talking about a new phone, we're talking about a new music device, and we're talking about a new internet device. And then he said it again, he said it again, he said it again. He said, it's the same thing. And when he released it, what he did was he integrated some pieces of things that hadn't been previously well integrated. And I don't think they've moved the ball a whole lot, not within Apple's scope, but they made the entire industry shift around the flavor of what it was they were delivering. And they've done that many times in the PC world and in their market segment. And I think that's what they bring that's charming, is they make everyone else go back and rethink a little bit harder about what they're doing. I think that's what Apple's brought to the table.
To some degree. I don't think it's quite that dramatic or quite that good. Because if you look, for example, when you say Android wasn't there, it wasn't selling when Apple came out, when iPhone came out, but it was there basically literally a few months afterwards. You don't develop something like this as an example of somebody else in that amount of time. They were working on Android, just at the time when they were working on iPhone. It just came out later. Same thing with the tablets. I mean, iPad came out first. That does not mean that nobody else had.
Tablets have been around forever. I had a tablet in 1994.
Tablets are not these kind of tablets, though. But anyway, to go back for a second to your point about simplicity and Apple, I'll give you an example. One of my clients has a Wi-Fi set up in their office, and we were using key number 4. You know how you set up Wi-Fi? You can set up 1 to 4 keys for security for WAP. Okay. Well, on Apple iPhone, at least I couldn't find it. If it's so simple, they only allow it only worked with key number 1. If you wanted to use any other key, there was no way for me to change the setting when I was setting up an account to use another key other than key number 1. And so to me, it's A, simplicity, yes. You don't have to worry about these keys. But B, I could actually not set it up to be as secure as it should have been because of quote-unquote simplicity. So, there's trade-offs between simplicity and capabilities. And this is where I think, Apple, to some degree, falls short. If you look at the old iMac announcement, back in the old days, what was people said, it was a major first innovation. Innovation in what? They hid the cables behind basically an enclosure, and they made it multicolor. That was it. That was the whole innovation at the time. And to me, it's just not an innovation. It's cute. I understand that. It looks cool. It looks nice. They were spinning around, different colors, translucent, beautiful. But from a computer standpoint, it's nothing. Nothing new, nothing innovative. That's all.
Again, it's a transformation of the user experience. I think they become pivot points around places where industries start to change, and they haven't always done it right. They haven't always brought things out that were extraordinary and innovative. They've tried to, but I don't think you can dismiss what they brought to the market space.
Like I said, I think the beautiful part about the products, I agree with, in terms of innovation. I mean, if you look at the cameras they put in an iPad 2, you look at the resolution of these cameras, it's pathetic. I mean, it's just absolutely pathetic how somebody in today's world can actually stick a camera that's that crappy, in a device like this. Or if you look at the original iPad that didn't even have any cameras, which is also, I mean, iPhone had a camera, and they came out with a tablet, and it doesn't have a camera. I mean, that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about where this was done. I don't know what the thinking was, but it certainly wasn't insanely great, in my opinion.
No, everything they have done hasn't always been insanely great, but we can also go through every other manufacturer and their product list and pull out products that weren't insanely great. I mean, every Android handset that's come out has not been groundbreaking.
No question about that. But I'm just saying, if you look at it, like my example before, if you look at the Amiga computer of 1980s, if you look at what it could do, there was nothing touching it even close in capabilities, and the thing completely, basically Commodore was a horrible company. They drove it into the ground. They had this piece of gold, and they ruined it. So there is a perfect example. You can have something superior, but that doesn't mean it's going to be a success. And I think that's basically what the point here is. Where you have something not necessarily superior, but if you package it well and you make it presentable and make it, show to people.
That's where marketing comes in, and
right?
That's where
and he was brilliant.
Comes in, and that's where user experience comes in, and that's why those things matter, and that's why they're important.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I probably agree on most things about technology. In that we look for functionality, we look for value, and what it will actually do. Most consumers just want the damn thing to look nice and work.
Right.
They don't care about features. That's a little overstated.
I agree. No, on an abstract way, I agree with you. I think you're right. Anyway, I recommend everybody. It's not the kind of book you read like a novel, because it's not. It's mostly just facts. But if you're into computer history, if you're into jobs, if you're into trying to see how the whole thing developed, it's a fascinating read. Definitely recommend it.
All right, let me ask you this, Oleg. On another issue, you talked about Next, Steve Jobs' company, and when they brought him back, they were getting him back, but he was a consultant. Really, they were buying his technology, and you dismissed it as, and accurately so, as products that didn't sell, but they were terrific. It was terrific stuff that nobody bought, and then they bought, except Apple bought it, and then they incorporated that, and then that became the future Mac line. And a lot of the technology went into that. It was all the graphical stuff. So isn't it kind of a bum rap or unfair to say that nobody bought it, because really Apple bought it and turned it into, the whole future line of the second biggest platform?
It depends how you look at it, Dan. If you look at it from a standpoint, was Next a successful company? And they tried to do hardware and they tried to do software. From that standpoint, it was not successful, okay? By the way, one of the things that's interesting in the book that I've never read before is that at that time, Bill Gates was actually trying to sell Apple his operating system to go on new Macs. That's something I've never heard of before.
Say that again. Bill Gates was trying to sell what?
Sell his technology, his operating system, to Apple to use in their newer products at that time. Okay, and he was really pissed when he found out that actually they bought Jobs' Next technology instead of his, because they were very close to actually buying Microsoft. Microsoft's OS at the time.
Because he knew that they were on their last legs. And then
they were on the last legs, and he wanted to sell them his own stuff and wanted to put them to become kind of enter the fold, to be in the same wave as all the PCs and everything else. And he was just totally irritated, even though he owned the world at the time. He was irritated that they didn't go with it. But going back to your question, I'm just saying that, Next, if you look at Next itself, without anything else, you can see that that was an example of a company that had some great product and had very good potential, but he just could not make it sell because it was too expensive, it was too vertical market, and those are the two main reasons why the thing didn't go where he was hoping it would go. It was basically meant to be a workstation type market product for universities, for science labs, for people like that, and there were just not enough of these kind of people to spend that kind of money, and other people spending kind of money to use this new superior technology. And so what he wound up doing then is splitting, because he was always, his philosophy was always do everything. That was his big deal. In Microsoft, philosophy was we only do software. You guys go out there and do hardware, we will do software, even though Microsoft does some hardware things as well. But mostly it's software company. Jobs, his game plan was you do everything. You do the whole experience, you totally keep control of it, and you do everything. You do hardware, you do software, you do everything to go with it, marketing, everything. And so he did that. I mean, that was the plan for the Mac. That's why he had his interior team, Apple team, actually develop some things like Mac Paint and Mac Write things directly in-house. But with the Next, when he saw that was failing, it wasn't selling, then he wanted to segregate the software end of it and see if he can sell that to somebody to try to make some money, because he was running out of money. And that's the time when, a little bit later on, he was going to sell it to IBM. He almost sold it to IBM, by the way, and then that deal fell through. And so by basically kind of an almost number of mistakes, he wound up not getting the deal with IBM, because he was going to sell next to IBM at the time when they were working, I think, on OS2 and things like that, which became, of course, a big fiasco between IBM and Microsoft.
All right, well, I want to ask you one other thing, and then I want to do a round robin, because we got to conclude pretty soon. But
okay,
I hear what you're saying, but I think it's about the end result. You can judge. I mean, he got canned from Apple. My opinion of Steve Jobs, he was a genius. He was a flawed man.
Yeah.
Personally flawed, based on the evidence that we know, right? He was a very private individual, so we're all basing this on second, third-hand accounts. Yes. But he was clearly a personally and professionally flawed person. He was basically, a jerk sometimes.
Yep.
But he also could look in a forest and find the hidden, flower. You use the phrase that I've heard so often, he didn't invent anything. But true inventors are rare. I mean, creating something from scratch. I mean, the old joke, every song is a derivative of something the Beatles did. You could come up with something like the best pizza recipe and start a chain and make, $1 trillion a year. And people say, well, he didn't invent pizza. But it's the most popular pizza in the world. Redbox didn't invent a DVD, the whole concept of renting DVDs, but they really perfected it, right?
Yes.
They've perfected the physical DVD distribution model.
Right.
And so you see what I'm getting at here. It's like, that's kind of the beauty. It's almost more impressive that, I mean, tablets have been around. I mean, they're in Star Trek, right?
Right.
Computers have been around since, I don't even know exactly when, since
Herman
Hollerith invented the Hollerith code, I guess, and then from then on they put it in boxes. And MP3s or the digital distribution thing, but he was smart enough to say, hey, this is something, and pick it out from thousands of different product ideas and say, you know what, I bet I can go there and personally persuade these different companies to agree to sell their stuff online when they're not talking to anybody else, right? And they're all angry about Napster and everything. I'm going to create this whole new thing, and I'm going to convince them to do it, and I'm going to invent this cool thing, and then the other copycats followed. It isn't necessarily about invention. It's about, what works and what do people buy. And when you had that big thing with Chris Pirillo, we were going to this, and I remember he said, like, yeah, but they're kicking everybody's ass, and they are. I mean, in the tablet, now the phone thing is iffy, but
it's not iffy. Androids are outselling iPhones. Come on, it's
is there
iffy.
A specific company selling Android phones that is outperforming Apple?
Samsung. In the last quarter, it was Samsung. Yes.
And that's a whole thing with the lawsuits. But
exactly.
And I hate this whole patent war, and everyone's suing everybody, and the consumers end up paying more, and the lawyers, they're the only ones benefiting, except for the ego boost that the CEOs get by socking it to somebody. But really, I think it's about, I don't think there's anything wrong with looking at something that's commonplace and figuring out a better way to do it, and then mass marketing it, and then everyone agrees that yours is better. Redbox is a great example.
Yeah, but see, Redbox, if you look at it, look at Netflix. Netflix used to be a great example too until they screwed up. So Redbox can screw up tomorrow as well, and it'll be the end of Redbox. It's not, these things are very fluid. You can't look at it, in my view, from a standpoint that once somebody comes up with a great idea based on somebody else's, it's going to be a success forever. It doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. Okay, it just doesn't. And so it's the same thing. iPhone was the greatest. iPhone was called the Jesus phone, if you remember, right? Okay, and now Androids are outselling iPhones. So how does that happen? It happens. Somebody comes out with a better, formula, and people buy into it. Obviously, if people didn't buy it, then and you can attribute it to whatever you want to attribute it. It's certainly not lack of marketing on Apple's side. They have always done brilliant marketing. I'm just saying that the man was getting a lot more hype after his death because of whatever, basically brainwashed people walking around chanting Steve Jobs than he deserved. That's all I'm saying. I mean, there was a guy by the name of Jay Miner. You probably never heard of him, right? Does anybody know who Jay Miner is?
I don't know. I'm not going to hazard a guess.
Okay, so let me tell you who Jay Miner is. He's the guy who invented and physically created, not just was a pitchman for the deal, but invented the original Atari VCS game machine, the 2600. Okay?
Awesome machine.
That next thing that he invented himself was the Atari 400, 800 computers, if you remember those. Okay? Next, he invented the Amiga computers. Okay? That was the same gentleman who actually invented and put together these things, and actually then they wound up going to market. Now, and you guys, none of you know who Jay Miner is. He was the most humble, the most gentle man I have ever met in my life, even though he was, in my view, 100 heads higher than Steve Jobs was in terms of his capabilities and what he actually accomplished. But yet, you know, there's all this outcry and all this talk about Jobs, and nobody knows who Jay Miner is. It's just the way it is in life, I guess.
But I used to be a high school teacher, and at Randolph-Macon Academy in Front Royal, Virginia, I was the advanced computer programming teacher, and when I was like 21, 22 years old, I was a current issues teacher. And I can tell you that it's a lot like school. The kids who are the biggest screw-ups and the kids who are at the class president, the leaders, they get all the attention. And it's not fair. But the ones who are just show up and do their stuff and are great, you know, the mid-tier, they don't get as much attention. And a lot of it is self-driven. You know, Steve Jobs would go in front of a stage, in front of the lights, and introduce his products, and he would pose for, I mean, how many pictures are there in the book and elsewhere you've seen of him posing for photo shoots? Well, these other guys with the beard who are actually in the back room in the cubicle producing, they don't get that attention. They're not as photogenic. They're not as exciting. They're not, and a lot of the reason for Steve Jobs' appeal is that he is sort of the rebellious figure, you know, the dean, the what have you, that it doesn't make sense. He doesn't fit into the typical cookie, you know, I mean, you know, Bill Gates is sort of, you know, the stereotypical really smart Harvard nerd computer guy, but Steve Jobs was like this rebellious guy. It was like different and fascinating in a way, the same way that Charlie Sheen, you know, is he that great an actor or performer or whatever, or intellect, that he deserves all that attention? No, it's because he was on the #1 show on American television, but then he like freaked out and behaved in these weird ways, and that got all the attention. I talked to a sound man for Elton John once, and we were discussing, I was like, you know, I love Elton John's music. I've seen Elton John and Billy Joel together. I was in the 8th row. They were terrific. And he said, and this guy worked for Elton, or Reginald Dwight, which is his real name, and he's like, you know, he said, yeah, he's so talented, because my observation was, why did he do all the crazy feather hats and stuff? Because it didn't seem necessary. And he said, yeah, but if he hadn't done that, would he be the household name that he is today? And Lady Gaga, I like some of her songs, right? I think she's talented, but if she didn't do those outlandish things, would she be the household name that she is today? Probably not. And I think that's a lot of it. And we try to recognize folks who made a contribution to computer stuff on this program, and a lot of them I didn't know existed. Like we had the gentleman who invented C and Unix, and like, I mean, that's a pretty big deal, right?
Exactly.
And I'm embarrassed that I didn't previously know his name. And a neighbor of mine has just come by. Gary, come on over here and stand over here. You can check it out. I've got come on over here and be quiet. So he said someone just hit a horse on 340. But anyway, so that was my point. I'm going to go do a round robin here. But my point was that it isn't just about who invents something, because invention is, again, a subjective term. It's about someone who can create, who sees something like, man, you know, I got an idea for this. This is interesting. And then, like, well, what do we do it this way, or have this color, or market it in this way, and create this whole new thing, and all of a sudden it sells 1 billion things? That's as successful as someone who invents something. It's depending on how you judge it. The bottom line is, he turned a company that was how many days from bankruptcy? Days, not weeks. Days.
He did.
You know,
no question,
and he turned it into the biggest market cap in the world.
And he gets kudos for that. There's no question. He gets kudos for that. Yeah. No
I'm talking to this guy. You're in Washington, right? I got my neighbor here who's scared. He just walked in. He's a buddy of mine. I've got all these folks here live on video. I'm just telling him real quick, and then I'm talking to him live. and then I got the audio network I didn't sign into for a long story, and then I've got this different stuff. But yeah, there's about 12 of us here. Anyway, so okay, let me do a round robin here, and get everybody in here. First of all, we did Oleg. Let me get Mark Schaub. Any final thoughts about Google Plus this week, and anything we've said here tonight about Steve Jobs? Whatever you want to talk about. This is your moment.
Well, I wanted to touch on the brand pages one more time. I think it's maybe the last couple weeks you're going to go to a page and there's not much content. Like for instance, the Major League Baseball, they have a page, but like no one's commented on it. No one's really engaged with it too much. It's all brand new. So it's just amusing to be able to see that right now, where a couple months down the line, it's not going to be even close.
Sorry, I have my mic down. Okay, let me go to. I got two different mice here. I got to get Synergy installed, or Boo's going to kick my butt. George, what are your thoughts about Google Plus this week? Anything cool going on, or?
Oh, just a lot of. There was some controversy about people posting other people's content and things like that. So that was kind of stirring everybody up, and
that did have an effect, though, didn't it, George? It did make you really make an effort. Like I'm posting, like, okay, I saw this on George's. I'm resharing this, George, but I also saw it on Oleg's page, and I think it's originally from TechCrunch, inspired by a Wall Street Journal article. Now you've got to like have ... all these disclaimers, because this guy totally called this guy out,
right,
for just totally taking posts. But he said that he thought the guy was a spammer, but I don't know. But yeah, that was the whole thing about it, because of the peculiar way that it shares, where if you posted something, or let's say that you saw an interesting post on Tom Anderson's page or Oleg's page or Priz's page, and you shared it and said, man, I love this post. Priz really makes a great point about pseudonyms. And this is something interesting everyone should read who thinks it's something that shouldn't matter, right? And then you have Priz's manifesto. And then you share that on your page, and then I see it, and I'm like, well, that makes sense. I like that too. And I type, hey, this is really cool. On my page, it'll say, it'll just reference Priz, right? It won't even reference you. And then as it goes down the line, and so people are like, well, man, I'm not going to get credit. I'm not going to get my little picture there. And so I'll just like copy his picture or whatever and post it myself. And then this guy got called out doing that, because he basically it's just not attributing something. But that's a legitimate thing. But really, it's wrong to do that. I try to always attribute stuff. And if I can, I try to say, I can't remember where I saw this, but this is the deal. But I try to acknowledge that this is not an original concept. And I think that's important, to establish credibility and to give credit where credit's due. But it's an issue because there's a kind of an odd way that Google Plus does it. So anyway, that's my 2 cents. All right, let's see here. David, what are your thoughts on this week in Google Plus?
Like I said, the brand pages I think is very. I'm interested to see what they're going to do with those. As someone who's working for a small business, I want to see exactly what ways I'll be able to use that to promote my business. We have I always liked how Google has been well integrated with the Google Maps. We find that a lot of people find our store just from Google searching generic things like cheap laptop parts, and then we'll come up because we're physically close to the customer. So I'm curious to see how, with the social aspect of it, how Google Plus is going to kind of tie in with everything. They've actually done really well with, providing relevant information for, people who are browsing Google services. And so I'm hoping that it's going to work out really well. Maybe a new kind of channel for us to reach our customers and maybe find more people than we otherwise would have, or a higher value customer. There's a lot of people that are on Google Plus are kind of a little higher income than, or a little more tech savvy than your typical internet browser. So I'll be watching that real close here, and see how that develops. And,
yeah, I hear you. I don't think it's ever going to have that. I think it's always going to be somewhere in between niche and broad appeal. I think it's going to be not as. I think it's going to be like Starbucks, not McDonald's coffee. But I think that's part of its charm. You can't be all things to all people, right?
Yeah.
I think that we've discussed this before, but all the stories, the next Facebook killer, it's not going to be a Facebook killer or a Twitter killer, or in the way that Facebook was a MySpace killer. I think it's different, and I think it's better. But I don't think everyone's going to be turned on by it yet. But hopefully I'll be proved wrong. But a lot of its appeal is that it isn't super. Everybody's on here.
One thing I would definitely say that their brand pages are a heck of a lot easier to set up and get going than the way Facebook got theirs set up. I mean, theirs is a joke in terms of setting up compared to how Google Plus is. And I think the simplicity will make, I think, adoption of Google Plus pages much more substantial.
Oleg, do you have any? What are your final thoughts on this week? Anything else? I know you joined the show late. Any final thoughts on Google Plus? Any developments this week or anything going on?
Yeah, no, I think with the release of the pages, definitely a big plus going forward. I think we got to give them a certain amount of time, because you can't roll out major new things in a matter of day after day after day. I mean, they keep adding all these little enhancements here and there, and the deal with badges and all of this stuff to develop this whole thing, this whole ecosystem. Definitely takes major effort, and we just need to be patient with them. And I think, personally, my take is they're doing an excellent job so far. That's what I would say.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. I mean, you can complain about it, but it's nice to be able to complain about it, that it's actually here. Anthony, what are your thoughts about your final thoughts here? And then I'm going to get to Adam and Alan Priz. What are your final thoughts here on this week, on Google Plus Week? On anything we've talked about tonight, Steve Jobs, what have you?
Yeah, I don't think I have anything to add at this time. So.
All right, that's cool. So but you still. I mean, how many hours a day do you spend on it? I mean, are you?
Too much.
I think we'd all agree on that. That's the only thing we'd all agree on. We don't agree on Coke versus Pepsi or Apple and Android, but we can all agree we spend way too much time. Joyous time wasting. Yeah, of all the ways I waste my time, Google Plus is up on that list. Any final thoughts, Adam, on anything interesting that happened this week, or your thoughts on what we discussed with the Steve Jobs book, or thoughts about the future of Google Plus?
I think it's going in a nice direction. I think that in the next coming months we'll see many more additions that will be definitely refreshing. New options, new tools for us to use on Google Plus. I hope to see more. So far, so good. I mean, it's only in the beginning stages, so it's only been a few months, hasn't it?
Yeah, and maybe you can. I'm going to ask you about this, because I remember I was on MySpace. I still have an account there, but I never log in now, because every time I log in, I get 50 spam messages immediately afterward. Maybe like once every 6 months I'll log in, and then I went to Facebook, and they were all cool. But when I first heard about Google Plus, I was so excited about the prospect of it. And then when I went on, I was like, oh my God, this is so awesome. This is the thing. Maybe, can you explain to me why? I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's just a natural affinity or trust I have for Google versus some other companies, but it was something that just sucked me in. I was like, I love this. This is so awesome. It's not perfect. It's flawed, like everything. But I was like, man, I've never been so excited about a social network, and I've been on a bunch of them. Do you have any idea am I missing something? I'm not sure why.
No, you belong to that group of people like myself that appreciate innovation. We appreciate this so much. I mean, anytime something is innovated, we're willing to, peruse it and give it a chance. And that's what you've done. That's what I've done. But the majority of the people, like the majority of Facebook users, for example, are comfortable where they are, and they're not seeking innovation. They just, they'll just let go with the flow. Whatever happens on Facebook, they're fine with it. Like, which are the same people that do not mind about the privacy issues, or, these people don't care about things like that. They just want to have their own little social nook where they can hang out and, whatever happens, happens. So you belong to that group, the group that we're in, and they belong to another group. But I do believe that if Google takes the route that Facebook has taken of branding themselves with almost everything around us in our daily lives, like when you walk into a store, you walk into a shopping mall, you see the Facebook logo everywhere. You see it on the doorways, you see it on the products. Follow us on Facebook, come see us on our Facebook page. If Google takes that route and pushes Google Plus on a offline manner like Facebook is doing, then we'll see the exact same thing happen here on Google Plus. That's why we're not seeing a huge influx of people come here immediately.
Yep.
See, Facebook has that reach. They have that marketing reach. I'm a professional marketer, and that's why I analyze these things. I say that's the only flaw right now that Google has, is that they're not spending, hundreds of millions if possible, which they do have, on pushing the name on offline venues to bring in that influx.
They're doing a few niche things, but they're definitely not doing Coke style advertising. Any final thoughts, Priz?
I've said it before, I'll say it again. Google needs to give people a compelling reason to come here, or they're not going to come here. And brand pages are a start, but they're a very small start, and it just isn't compelling yet.
I think the key thing is that everyone's not here yet. I think that's the only big thing.
That's a chicken and egg problem now.
There are quirks, and there are problems we're trying to work through. And there are limitations and odd things, and it's not there yet. It's an open beta. But the bottom line is the reason most people aren't using it is because most people aren't using it. And incorporate...
But the reason why most people aren't using it is because they don't see a compelling reason to come use it.
I don't agree with that. I think the reason most aren't...
What's the compelling reason?
No, I think all those people who signed up during that open day period didn't stick around because none of their other friends were there. I think that it's kind of like once the bar becomes...
That turns into a chicken and egg problem then.
People want to... People go to the bar that everybody goes to.
They're never going to be here because everyone else isn't already here. Therefore, you've just doomed Google to failure.
No, because I'm not. The point I'm making is, as they introduce the brand pages, and you're going to see the +1 thing everywhere, and you're going to see more people do exclusive contests on here, and I'm sure the couponers will come. I'm already getting game messages in my. I'm getting email notifications about people who are posting game things, even though that's not supposed to happen because I've muted all game notifications because I could care less. So there's like some loophole. No offense, Adam. There's some loophole for people to sneak these game notifications in. Allegedly, Adam. I'm just kidding. But I just think the bottom line is the folks we want in, the soccer moms or whatever, if we want them in, aren't here because when they came in, nobody else they knew was here. But as the brand pages take off and as it grows, and you're going to see, because Google is such a powerful property, everybody Googles stuff. It's a verb. Google it. Right? Nobody says Bing it. Have you ever said someone Bing it?
Then that turns into the compelling reason why brands would want to be here. But again, the question...
They're going to want to be here, and their badges are going to be everywhere, and eventually everyone's going to stumble onto it, even if they don't mean to.
Right. I don't think your average person knows about Google+. They know about Facebook, but your next door neighbor, you ask them what Facebook is, they're going to know. You say something about Google+, I think their eyes are going to glaze over.
But it hasn't been too long ago when you wouldn't have been able to have that conversation. They wouldn't have had the cognizance of it, right?
Correct.
That's the thing. I think over time it's going to build, and once people are here, because it's like I remember when I was using the Yahoo search engine, and my sister Kelly made fun of me and said, "Oh, Dan, you're so 6 months ago. Everyone's on Google now." And I was like, okay. So I typed it. I said, "Hey, GOO," and so I typed it in. This was like early, whatever year it was when they first came out. And now everybody's Googling. These things change. And this is why I still believe, even though I don't practice it totally, I saw really good advice from somebody. They said it's important that you own your content and you have your own page, and that you post your stuff originally on your own page that you own, and then you aggregate it out to your social networks. Because social networks come and go, as we've seen with MySpace, then Facebook, Google Plus is a niche, perhaps a competitor or whatever, that you don't want to put a bunch of stuff like this newspaper that stopped their website and said they were going to publish exclusively on Facebook. And then all of a sudden, a lot of people's attentions have shifted here. And then Facebook changed their UI, their user interface. And a lot of people don't like it. And it's hard to find stuff. You're kind of at their mercy if you're using that as a publishing platform. I mean, do you really want to publish on a platform you don't control? You know, do you really want to write articles for a newspaper when you can't control the layout? You know, so I don't know. It's just it's fascinating to watch, but it's a great argument, and I want to thank everybody. We got to tie it up. All you guys are great. I want to thank all of you folks for
thank you
participating. It was wonderful. Bowie, are you there? Oh my goodness, Bowie, we got to. Okay, we just had a last minute extension. Bowie. You've got a serious, you got a look going on. You're not going to disrobe, are you? Vancouver has arrived. What time is it in Vancouver? It's still early there, right? It's like 7 p.m.
Time to get going.
Yeah, it's 7 o'clock, dude.
Yeah, light your stogie. It's not illegal there. You're not in New York.
Oh, I got a shitload of Cubans.
I imagine.
Oh.
Bowie's always. This is a last minute bonus. We'll have to edit this. We may have to edit this out depending on what he does or says. What is that?
That's my Cuban collection.
Cuban what?
Cigars? Cigars. It's not illegal up here.
Have you just arrived from some sort of place that sells beverages, perhaps?
No.
So what are your thoughts about brand pages, Bowie?
Yeah, tell him.
Did you just mute yourself, or did somebody mute you? I can't hear you, buddy.
Hey, where are you muting me? Your face. Oh.
No, don't. You can't say that. I gotta beep it now. Now you've delayed the whole show. You've delayed the whole YouTube posting, but that one delay.
I didn't know you're doing a show. It's like 7 o'clock, man. You do it at 5 o'clock usually, don't you? You're like 2 hours late? Dan. 2 hours late. I'm sorry, I didn't know. I'm sorry. Let's shut up now.
See, this Adam, you got to get on him. See, he's giving these crazy Canadians.
No, I didn't know. You usually do it at 5 o'clock. It's 7 o'clock now.
You're my favorite Canadian.
I know. I'm your only Canadian.
All right, so you have any final thoughts on our program about brand pages? I'm going to have to edit in a closing now.
Have any of you seen the badges? Because I got an email from Google giving me some kind of code where I can like test the badges for the brand pages. Anyone else have that?
Yeah, played with it a little bit.
I couldn't get it to work. I don't know what I was doing. I swore by it.
Worked fine for me.
Yeah, I tried to do it with and without the HTML5 or whatever. I don't know. I tried all the options. It didn't work for me.
So are you excited about brand pages, and do you think that they're functional as is, or do you think that they need lots of work?
I think, see, for me, I like to keep everything organized. Like I'm a big freak when it comes to organizing stuff. So I can see the brand pages helping you be more organized with all your postings, right? You can keep everything all separate and whatnot. I can see that. I haven't really played around. Like I only had it for like a day, right? So I don't know. I can't really say anything yet. I think they're cool. Something else to play with.
Okay. All right, and all right, we're gonna keep the live chat or the live hangout going and the live stream going for anyone who's watching and wants to watch. But I want to thank you folks for participating tonight. It was great. This is the end of this week's episode. We'll be back with another exciting episode of all the week's news and Google+. I want to thank all the folks who participated throughout the evening. I really appreciate it. It was fun and really interesting. And we'll see you next time. Check us out. I'm Dan McDermott, thanking you for watching this episode of Google+ Week.